All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome on into today's edition of Sixers Game Recap. We're looking at Sunday night primetime basketball as the Philadelphia 76ers would face off against the Milwaukee Bucks for the last time this season. And let's put it politely here. I mean, the Sixers had nothing here. The Bucks coming off of a devastating defeat against Boston earlier in the week, lost by 40 points. It was a bad showing for the Milwaukee Bucks, who obviously are trying to hold on to the first seed in the Eastern Conference. So you come back on Sunday against another Eastern Conference team in the Philadelphia 76ers, who obviously are looking to help their seeding place. And of course, it's an Eastern Conference showdown. When it's Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Miami, like any of those teams that face off, regular season or playoffs, it always is going to have the same amount of intensity, typically, you would think. But this one, Milwaukee definitely came out with all the intensity, and they just kind of deflated the Sixers. You know, and the thing is that the big one in this is that the Milwaukee Bucks started off quick. Like we're talking 6 minutes into the first quarter, it's a 29-16 lead by the Milwaukee Bucks, and their shooting was impeccable here on the night. They started off 10 of 11 from the field. That's remarkable, and the Sixers just had no answers. They couldn't get the offense going. James Harden would struggle, and the Milwaukee Bucks just flexed their muscles, and the Sixers had no answers here on the night. I don't honestly like this type of performance doesn't change my perception of the Sixers going up against the Bucks. I still am looking forward to a Bucks Sixers matchup in the playoffs because I do think that still, even despite a loss like this, I still think that the Sixers match up very, very well with the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that this one is just the Bucks came in with a sense of urgency, wanted this a little bit more, and the Sixers unfortunately just did not have an answer. And that's just really what it is, and that's how we're going to have to live with this one. Obviously, still in a good spot here for the Sixers with the 3 seed here. It's theirs for the taking, but obviously you don't want to lose like this late into the season. I know it's been a really tough stretch as well, and we're almost done this tough stretch. You got 2 tough ones here this week, and then you got 4 more games in the regular season. We're really dwindling down on the NBA regular season, but this one is definitely where you're gonna sweep it under the rug and you're gonna move forward, because certainly this is not how you want to spend your Sunday nights. You get you were hoping that the Flyers on Sunday afternoon would somehow, some way spoil the Penguins' thoughts and prayers of a playoff appearance. That didn't happen. They lose 4-2. You're hoping that the Phillies can avoid the sweep on Sunday night on prime time. I think they were on ESPN. No, they were on Fox because I was watching a little bit of that before the Sixers, and they got swept by the Texas Rangers. And you're hoping that the Sixers, although albeit it's been a very competitive series with the Bucks throughout the regular season, you're just hoping that they can get a dub. And unfortunately, for the Philadelphia 76ers, it just wasn't meant to be on the night. And then, of course, they're coming off of back-to-back wins, solid wins against the Mavs, against the Raptors, and you're hoping that streak would continue here on against the Bucks, but it just wouldn't be. But we're going to talk a little bit more about this game. I want to formally welcome everyone into today's Sixers game recap. Again, I'm your boy El Parcero Philly, the night of all things sports and culture in the beautiful city of Philadelphia. What's going on, YouTube? I really appreciate everyone tuning on in. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns about the Sixers, please drop in the comment section. We'll be reading those in just a little bit. But like I said, this is a game where the Bucks start off quick. The Sixers had no leads in this game. None. Nothing. Nothing. Like the closest they got was like 4 points. That's about the closest that the Sixers would get. But yeah, no, like I mentioned, the Bucks just started off shooting the lights off. Perimeter game was obviously very big here for the Sixers. Even Brook Lopez was knocking down some shots. Chris Middleton was back as well. I don't think we've seen Chris Middleton at full strength, and still don't think he's at full strength, but this is the best that this Bucks have gotten Chris Middleton since that final season. But they really jumped up into a big start. I mean, we're talking 29-16 by 6 minutes into the quarter. The Bucks put up 41 points in the first quarter. Like, that's just remarkable. Now, obviously, the last time we faced off against the Bucks was in Milwaukee, and similar fashion where the Bucks went up big. Remember, it was like what was it, a 22-point lead or something big heading into the fourth quarter last time we were in Milwaukee, and the Sixers came all the way back and beat the Bucks. It took the whole entire quarter, but that they were able to come back. And I think the big part of the reason why they were able to come back in that one was because Joel and James really turned it the F up. And we always talk about it during recaps, but this Sixers team only goes as far as Joel and James will take them. And unfortunately, tonight wasn't a James night. He genuinely struggled from the field. He had a lot of turnovers as well. Turnovers were a factor here for the Sixers in general. And it didn't help that the fact that the Bucks were just so efficient shooting the ball. But that was definitely a big factor and the reason why. Now you go into halftime, it's a 20-point lead by the Bucks, and Sixers start off the third quarter on a run. They cut the lead to 5, and you're thinking, here we go. And then near the end of the third quarter, the Bucks just kind of pull away, and they walk out of that they walk out of that quarter with like a 14-point lead after it was a 5-point lead, like less than 6 minutes left into the third quarter. And that's just kind of how the night was. And that was the best chance the Sixers had. The Bucks kind of ran away with it. The Sixers kind of threw in the towel as well in the fourth quarter. You started seeing some Furkan Korkmaz, some Montrezl Harrell, Daniel House, got some more minutes as well. And then it just was one of the nights where you throw in the towel, you sweep it on the rug, and you kind of just move forward here. But, yeah, so back to James and Joel. So fourth quarter, obviously that's really where you're expecting it to happen, man. It just didn't. For James, I mean, he's been struggling a little bit as of late, but, he's still extremely important. You see now, after some of these losses, one of the big factors and the reason why you lost is the fact that you are without James Harden, or James Harden is just not performing in the fourth, or it's just not his night, you can say. But turnovers are big here for the Sixers team in general, and then you allow the Bucks to kind of go on a quick pace, and that's how they beat you. That's just genuinely how they beat you. You were able to get a good performance. Tyrese Maxey yet again dropped 29 points. By the way, if you guys aren't subscribed to the Sixers Insiders, definitely do so. They had a great interview with Tyrese Maxey, getting to know him a little bit more. I was listening on my ride back home yesterday, so definitely check that out. It was cool to hear. Tyrese Maxey and his development, his maturation. It's crazy how he's so grounded as a 22-year-old young NBA phenom. He's obviously growing in this league, becoming a star in his own right. And he had a great performance. Unfortunately, we just could not get him any more support. But he would lead the Sixers in points with his 29. He was 6 of 7 from a three-point line. He was on fire from that spot, but it still was not enough. 28 points here for Joel Embiid. He would add 9 boards and 5 assists here on the night. Tobias had 6 points, not what you want to see from Toby. 0 for 3, he was cold. Obviously, he's coming off of his illness that we still don't know what it was exactly, but he obviously missed the last game. So he's back here in this one, obviously recovering from that illness. And so you get a 6-point performance and a minus 12 from Tobias Harris. So that's also a big factor, too. PJ Tucker in his return to Milwaukee. They really love him up in Milwaukee, which is cool to see. 5 points for PJ. He added a 3 and a bucket. He had 2 boards and 2 assists as well for the Sixers. And then your bench, D'Anthony Melton would lead the way again with his 21 minutes, 3 points. 3 points. That's all we got. That's all I got for you. 3 points for D'Anthony Melton in 21 minutes. He was 1 for 5 from the field. It was, again, another cold night from D'Anthony Melton. George Niang with 17 minutes off the bench. Another cold one from him. Jalen McDaniels, 14 minutes. Cold one from him. He gives you 0. Your leading scorer coming off the bench, of course, is Daniel House, because why not continue the debate of whether he should be getting playoff minutes or not? We talked about this during the last one. So if you guys want to know my thoughts on it, check out the Sixers versus Raptors game recap, and I'll explain to you my thoughts on what you should do with House and with Niang. Paul Reed, I thought he looked really solid. There was one move where Paul Reed gets the ball as he's rolling into the paint, into the post. He takes a hard stop. Then he goes into Giannis Antetokounmpo's body, into his soul, pushes it off with his muscle, and then gets the layup. I was impressed by that. I'm genuinely impressed by Paul Reed, simply because when you talk about role players, the most important thing is to know your role. I know it's go figure, but that's the important part about it. And for Paul Reed, understanding his role, being a rim runner, it's really it's a breath of fresh air because guy knows his role. He's flourishing in that role, and we don't have to critique him too much because we know his role, and that's what he's been doing. He added 8 points here tonight. He had 10 boards for Mr. Paul Reed. So Paul Reed got into it, got active, earning those minutes, of course. But yes, you saw some PJ Tucker at the 5 here again. But Paul Reed definitely was a solid performance again. But I mean, the problem here for the Sixers, though, as we now look at the Bucks. I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo got his, and that's always to be expected. Giannis is always going to get his 33 points. What you need to do, though, is slow down the rest of the guys for the Bucks. And unfortunately, on a night like tonight, where the Bucks were shooting 35% from the 3-point line, they knocked down 10 threes from that 3-point line. But more importantly, the field. The field's where they really killed you. 57.5. They did enough from the 3-point line, but the field is where they really killed you. 57.5% from the field. They had, get this, they had 7 less attempts than the Philadelphia 76ers, and they were 11% more efficient than the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, that to me is just, you got to do a better job defensively. You have to be, the intensity was not there the whole entire night, and the Bucks were able to get buckets in any way they wanted to. That's what that tells you. And so the defense has to be more intense. We've seen before, the problems with the Sixers defense is that the energy is not there for the full. This is still, like, get this. This is still the 8th ranked defensive unit in the NBA. Like, as much as we kill the Sixers defensively, they still are a top 10 defense in the league. Now, obviously, they get steals. They for the most part do a solid job of holding guys down as far as the field goes. There have been times where teams have been killing them from the perimeter, or specific players have been killing them from the perimeter. But overall, this defense hasn't been terrible. It's just the intensity and the energy hasn't always been there. That's why I always say, come playoff time, I feel fine with this team defensively because they've shown that they can do it. It's just a matter of consistency, and that is what they need to do. But honestly, like when you look at this Bucks team, like look at Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Brook Lopez, Grayson Allen, Drew Holiday, Joe Ingles, Bobby Portis, Jay Crowder, Goran Dragic, Wesley Matthews. Like this is Doc Rivers' wet dream. Like quite literally, this team is Doc Rivers' wet dream. All veteran players. You got a superstar in Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like he's got his youngest player on this team is what? Grayson Allen, Javon Carter, like Pat Connaughton, and Pat doesn't even barely get any minutes anymore since his NBA final season. Like this is what Doc Rivers wants the Sixers to be. Now, don't get me wrong; it's not a bad thing, and this might very well work for the Bucks. But I still think like implementing young players is still important, not only for the future because obviously like your veteran players like James and Joel are not going to be here forever, right? But Tyrese Maxey could be here for 10 plus years. Implementing, still having those young players. Obviously gives you a different look, gives you a change of pace, that energy, that high pace that they always play. Those young kids always play with is extremely it's efficient, and of course having the future set up for you is really nice as well. I mean like look at Boston's and look at Doc Rivers' Boston teams like having Avery Bradley and Rajon Rondo after all those years after the run that they had with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. That was huge for them. I think Baby Davis couldn't stay because he got paid after that, but regardless. It's still extremely important. But yeah, this Bucks team is just Doc Rivers' wet dream. So look, overall, it does suck, losing this game. But you are. I think everyone's focus right now, including the Sixers, is the playoffs. Like our minds are there, and so when you're looking at this matchup, it does suck. But you're gonna wipe this under the rug. Look, you give credit to Milwaukee; they bounced back after a bad performance from themselves. And they came in with intensity, and that's the lesson learned. You want to win games against elite teams, you got to play intentional basketball for 4 quarters. It can't just be a spur of the moment. And the times where the Sixers, give up big leads or they're coming back after a big deficit, like you can't constantly do that. You can't put yourself in those type of situations. So it is definitely rough. Let's see. Any news of notes here? Let's look at the standings real quick. So the Sixers, yeah. So the Sixers now 3 games back of Boston. I think safe to say they can lock up the 3 seed. You got 4 games left, and you're 2.5 back of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who I do believe lost last night as well. Let me double check. Last night they won. They did win. They won by 10 against Indiana, which is Indiana in trouble not making it to the play-in round? Yeah, they're not going to make it to the play-in round. It's definitely Chicago. I think the play-in round is set, actually. I think it's Miami, Atlanta. Maybe Miami catches up to Brooklyn. We'll see. Miami, Atlanta, Toronto, and Chicago. I think that's it. No, there's no chance Washington, Orlando, or Indiana catch up to Chicago. They're just going to continue winning there. So that's rounding out the Eastern Conference there. So we'll see what happens. I thought it was interesting, a little bit of a tidbit here. Yesterday on Twitter, Chris Jenkins decided, I don't know, he felt spicy. I don't know if he was having a Sunday fun day, had a little bit too many bottomless mimosas. But he's calling out the Sixers for the 20, so where are we at now? The 2000, I'm pretty sure it was a 2018 draft when we drafted Mikal Bridges and then traded him to Phoenix for Zaire Smith. We all know that was, listen, you ask any Sixers fan, that trade is one of the biggest regrets of any of our lifetimes. And I'm sure the Sixers themselves will tell you the same thing, as now Mikal Bridges is a key cornerstone of the Brooklyn Nets rebuild. But why do we need to revisit that? Like, everyone knows that. Like, you just sound like you sound like the high school player from like 20 years ago, reliving in his glory days. Like, relax, all right, relax. We all know that the Sixers fucked up, and you going out here looking like a little kid on Twitter bitching and complaining doesn't really help your case. But I digress with that. But at the end of the day, we fucked up, and we all know that. And I think now, as Mikal Bridges is now back in the East Coast, and he's in our division, he's going to make us pay for it. He had a solid game against us when I was up there a couple months ago in February for the Brooklyn and Sixers game. So we'll see what happens. But I thought that was very interesting. Now, it's funny because last night, while everyone in Philadelphia was either watching the Phillies, watching the Sixers, or watching some women's basketball national championship, Iowa versus LSU, and of course the controversial moment, Angela Reese and Caitlin Clark. LSU wins, or they're winning, it's the clock winding down. Angel Reese doing the same thing that Caitlin Clark did the previous game, the John Cena, the you can't see me. And she does a little bit extra. She's staring hardcore, does the whole ring thing like, yo, I stole your damn ring. And so Twitter being Twitter just implodes and explodes, and we got all this controversy. Was Angel Reese in the wrong? Caitlin Clark, poor her. Here's my stance on it. I am sick and tired of the racial double standards in this goddamn country, and it's never going to end. The fact of the matter is, Caitlin Clark did the same thing the game before. Now, was Angel Reese extra? Of course she was extra, but she was being herself. But if a white woman were to do the same thing that Angel Reese had, oh, it's cute. It's fine. It's okay. She's just happy. She won. But God forbid the black girl from the hood did it, because then everyone would go up in arms. Congratulations to LSU. Would I have done that? Listen, I think that Reese did it took a little. When she did the ring thing, that's where it went a little too far. This was okay. The stare down for like 20, 30 seconds, that's okay. I was like, all right, girl, you go, you're drawing the line. You're drawing the line a little bit. But I just find it so funny, like this debate. And you got Portnoy calling it a P. Like, Portnoy should just absolutely be quiet. Like, just sit on your millions from Barstool, dude. You don't need to put your 2 cents in topics that you have no idea about. All right, so personally, me, Angel Reese, congratulations to LSU. Everyone should just allow them to be who they are. And just keep it the same. As I always say, keep the same energy. And yet we don't. We just don't. So congratulations to LSU. Yeah, overcame Ben Simmons. All right, guys. That's going to do it here for today's edition of Sixers Talk. I appreciate everyone coming on in. Again, sweep this game under the rug. We're focused on the playoffs. Now, tomorrow, you have a big one. It's Boston. And, of course, they're playing Doring's Champions League, which fucking sucks. But regardless, tomorrow, it's Boston and it's Philly. We'll see what happens. You avoid the sweep. Please avoid the sweep to Boston. No one wants to get swept to the Boston Celtics here in Philadelphia, but we'll see what happens. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Subscribe for more Philly sports. Until next time, I go by the name El Parcero Philly, and I'm telling you guys, let's go Philly sports. Talk to you guys soon.